Good morning. It's 11 a.m. here on the West Coast. It's Memorial Day, and I have the day to myself, more or less, or at least a few hours to myself. So I wanted to come up and check in and say hi. Hi. Got my nails done. So I was looking at my list of things. I actually took some notes today. It's a miracle. I knew I wanted to talk today. I just wasn't sure about what. But I think after going out to dinner with a friend last night who works for Tomboy X, it's a very gender-forward company, we talked a lot about pronouns. And so I was going to talk a bit about pronouns today. So I think I've mentioned in the past that I am 50s, in my 50s. I'm going to be 54 in July. And I grew up in the very traditional generation, she, he, they. He is a man. She is a woman. They are a bunch of men or women or mixed. And it's plural. Very easy, very traditional. And it's changed, and that's not a problem. I'm all for change. When my partner started coming out, of course, he was a he. He'd been a he for 40-something years, almost 50 years. And at first, he was transitioning. He remained he. He was publicly he. But there came a time when he switched pronouns, and it was actually in, I want to say January 2016, right after Trump was elected. She was a little nervous about what was going to be happening in this administration, so she went out and kind of pushed forward with a lot of things that she hadn't originally planned on doing so quickly. But anyway, there was a period in there where at home, she was she, with her female name. And in public, she was he, with her male name. So at home, I had to call her by her female name. And in public, I had to call her by her male name. And let me tell you, there is a mind warp thing that goes on there that I can only laugh about. It was so confusing that I really had to be careful. Now, there was a couple of my friends that knew us as a heterosexual couple and know us as a non-traditional couple now. I won't say lesbian, that's a whole nother subject to talk about, but a couple of people that identify as female that are together now. And watching them And these women are, because I've always had heterosexual female friends, this is what I grew up with, so they're very accepting, but to see them struggle with the pronoun things, it's interesting watching people's reasonings and justifications and excuses and genuine mistakes. But I know for me that period of 6 months or so before she came out publicly, let me tell you, I couldn't get my pronouns straight to save my life. I had to really think about. I had gotten used to her female. She'd been out to me for a couple years at that point, so she was definitely a she. So in public, I had to be really careful to not misgender her in the opposite way. But in that spring, she came out to family and friends and work and everything else, so it became easier. Now my problem is when I hear a male pronoun, the rule in my head is to switch to female. So I have a dog, a black dog, who's literally the only male left in this house at this point, and I keep calling him her because, not that he cares, but it's because I can't. It's just a thought in my head that male pronouns have to be female pronouns now, and I have to be really careful in public when I am referring to somebody. It's kind of, I think you learn better and quicker when you're younger, and so for me, it's been an interesting, at times very humorous journey, and watching other people accept it. It's been really interesting around family, but that's a whole nother story as well, which I'll talk about someday. So now we are all females, with the exception of my dog, and we all identify as female. And my partner uses she pronouns, she, her, hers pronouns. The thing is, in a larger community, you don't always know. And so then it becomes a little more challenging. Say you meet a trans person, or you suspect somebody's trans, or somebody who is not gender normative. Be straightforward. If you're talking to them and you're having interaction with them, ask. Just ask, what are your pronouns? What are your preferred pronouns? They're not going to be offended. It's kind of an awkward question, I agree. Just ask. Don't be shy. I mean, especially if you're having a conversation with a person, don't let's go up to a stranger and go, oh, what are your pronouns? Some people wear buttons. Some people don't. There is a big splintering of gender. It's no longer he means he, and she means she, and they means they. There's a difference between, I probably should have started off with this, but there's a difference between gender and how you identify sexually, and I think very commonly out there they're interchanged. People consider them the same thing, and they're really not. So that's part of, I should probably talk about that at some point. But anyway, so it's important to ask or to figure it out. The thing that I find that I struggle with mostly is the pronoun they. I totally respect it. I have the hardest time remembering it to save my life, and for what it's worth, I don't have anybody that's directly in my life that identifies as they, but I have a 20-year-old daughter who has friends, and they are definitely theys. What is a they? They, for me, means multiple people. They nowadays means somebody who doesn't identify as necessarily male or female. They may be gender non-binary. They may be intersex. They may be androgynous. They may, whatever it is that they're choosing to identify as. And they just may prefer the pronoun they. I know there's a local barista that has they is my pronoun or something along those lines, and it's a tough one. It's especially for those of us who grew up with they meaning something else. And I've talked to my girlfriends about it just as conversations have come up, and it's a tough one to kind of, you're drilled with English grammar, or your language's grammar when you grow up, and they has a meaning to it, so it's switched nowadays. I think it's important to be genuine. In other words, I am of a particular generation. My life is not what I expected it to be. I mean, I don't know if anybody's life is actually what they expected it to be, but my marriage certainly isn't what I expected it to be. And so to have gone through all these gender changes, I say all of them, it feels like all of them, the gender change that my partner's gone through, and the pronoun changes that we've gone through are pretty simple. It went from he to she. It was just remembering, and ironically enough, when I get really mad, when I get angry, I revert back to he, and it's not intentional. It's just, I don't know why I do that, because ironically we've been married 8 years, and she's been out for 5 of those. So we've been married as male, female, and trans female longer than we were husband and wife. But anyway, I don't know. I refer back to he. Maybe it's some sort of passive aggressive thing. It's not intentional, at least not consciously intentional. But anyway, so you know, the whole gender thing, the whole pronoun thing, it, it has its humorous moments, and there are unhumorous moments. We have people. We were in Cabo once, and there was a man trying to sell us some jet ski rides, and he was like, "Hey, amigas." He was properly gendering both of us. I was kind of impressed, and you know, "You beautiful ladies, you should come for a ride." Da da da. Very nice, and not particularly persuasive, and we didn't want to go for a ride. And he goes, "Okay, amigos." Like, he was done with trying to impress us with the proper pronouns, and my partner was a little irritated by that, and I said, "You're never going to see this guy again, who cares?" And she felt it was kind of a direct derogatory thing, and it was certainly meant as a derogatory thing. I'm not in her spot to know who's intentional and who's not about gender, but it can be really subtle with people, and they can be really passive aggressive about it. So you're just going to have to trust people when they're trying what it is that they're doing. Like, I have a very good friend that, oh my God, even 3 years later, she still calls Clara by her male pronouns sometimes, and I look at her and I've just stopped trying to explain to her, and I'll just correct her like pretty bluntly. And I don't know. I know she's not doing it intentionally. I don't know. This is one of those things, you know. It's like you can choose to deal with it the way you want to deal with it. I see most of my friends as trying, but I see the general public as sometimes trying, sometimes not. It's one of those things you just never thought you'd have to think about or give any thought to, and there's many labels out there outside the pronoun labels that will come up, and that's again in a whole nother video, and I should probably talk about that. There's a lot of things I should talk about. I've been taking notes. The he she thing, though, the he she they, in the end, for me, the person I married, the male that I married, the man that I married, is the person that I love. It's the person that I want to be with. And she is now identifying as female. And she wants and desires female pronouns. And I want to respect that about her. My daughter asked me, we were talking around Valentine's Day around pronouns and the persons and stuff like that, and I said, well, I love the person that, you know, that my partner identifies as. And she's like, well, that's awful complicated. And I said, well, for me, the person's the person I previously identified as male and now identifies as female, but it's the same person. So this is how I use the she pronouns, because she wants me to, because she asked me to, because she identifies as female the same as I do, and I have female pronouns. But she's a person still. I'm a person, so it's taking out that, it's separating that gender and sexuality and all the other stuff just by being a person. You're a person, you're a human. This is how you identify. And that's how I remember things, and that's how I get through this gender stuff. But there's some funny moments. There's some interesting moments watching people deal with this, and there's some interesting moments watching myself get through this. So I guess that's all I got to say. Happy Memorial Day. I'm blessed with the freedom to live here, despite our government. I'm very grateful for all the soldiers and people out there on the front lines. Thank you. Bye.